Hello and welcome to another Battalion Wars 2 video. It's been a little while since my last one. I kind of took another break from it because I hit a roadblock in what I was trying to do. But we finally, I can say that we've reached a point where we have functioning multiplayer single-player levels. So I've been trying to get this to work for like a pretty long time, kind of off and on. Like I remember testing it with a frame way back on a Wii, and it didn't work quite right because player 2 couldn't function. And then more recently we were able to actually test things on Dolphin, which made me come back to it, but we still couldn't get it to work, and it's because you have to edit the script files actually in order to get it functioning properly. And I had my most recent thing that I had figured out was how to actually have player 2's camera work right. So player 1 and 2 had their own cameras and they both loaded into the mission online, but the last thing that was still missing was player 2 couldn't actually control their unit or control anything. But we finally have it working, and it's really thanks to Yoshi for spotting the line of text that was preventing player 2 from moving. It has to do with the fact that during cutscenes, the game prevents the player or players online from moving. And there's a line of text that is like freeze player 1, freeze player 2, and then at the start of the mission, there's a line of text that tells the game to on-freeze player 1 and on-freeze player 2 after the cutscene. And the reason why player 2 couldn't move is because there was only a line of text telling player 1 to on-freeze, but all I had to do was add in player 2 on-freeze, and then player 2 is able to move. So that's what I'm showing right now, is just a demonstration of functioning 3-2 with 2 players in it. And right now I'm actually playing as player 2, which is the one that we couldn't get to work properly before. And I know that on the map and also above the player unit right there on the left, it says player 1, but that's actually just because when you're playing online, both players see themselves as player 1, and they both see the other player as player 2, which is kind of weird, and I'm not sure why they did it that way, but that's how the game displays player 1 and player 2 online. But in the game files, player 1 is actually the Anglo Isles and player 2 is the Solar Empire. So yeah, that was functioning player 2, and I was testing this online via Dolphin with 2 instances of Dolphin open, which allows me to play against myself online, which is great because it means I can test things a lot faster and easier without having to actually get someone else to play against me. But I do plan to make videos of these converted single-player levels to multiplayer with other people playing against me, or with me if I do co-op, because that would be really fun. And I do plan to probably try converting a single-player level into co-op next, because I want to try that, and I remember trying to do that with 1-2, where player 1 would be the Solar Empire and player 2 would be Western Frontier. So that's probably the next one I'll try, and I'll just give the Western Frontier like an additional light tank and some rifle grunts at the start of the mission, so that both they and the Solar Empire units can go defend the naval guns together. And then after they complete that objective, they would move on to where you would normally encounter the Western Frontier. And that will just be like a place where, if you're playing as the Western Frontier, you get reinforcements, and you'll get the additional light tank and rifle grunts that are defending that part of the island to help you. And so now I'm just showing the other side, what it would look like if you were playing as player 1, which is the Anglo Isles, and it's pretty much the same as, you know, how it would normally be if you were doing the mission in single player. You start as the submarines over on the edge of the map. Now, something else I should mention is There's still some things that need to be fixed, and I don't think it'll be too difficult, a lot of these things. But, for example, in this level, there's some text that tells the game to make the Solar Empire units invincible during the cutscene at the beginning. And so I'm guessing because Player 2's opening cutscene is broken and it's like trying to use Player 1's cutscene, it doesn't recognize that the cutscene has ended. So all the Solar Empire units right now are just invincible still, as if the cutscene was still active. Which you may have noticed when I was playing as the Solar Empire just a moment ago. But I think that should be pretty easy to fix. And then another thing is the cutscene at the beginning, like I just mentioned. And for that, I would ideally want the Solar Empire to have some text show up from Admiral Akira. And we wouldn't be able to have voice acting, obviously. But I know that it's possible to add in your own text for what the CO is saying, because I've seen Yoshi do that before. Although I think he may have just replaced text. I don't know if he actually added in new stuff. So I'm actually not sure how difficult that would be. But that's also not a huge deal if we can't get that working right away. But I definitely want to fix the Solar Empire being invincible, which should be pretty easy. And I want to make sure that both sides have proper win conditions. So, like, if the Solar Empire wins, it'll display as defeat for the Anglo Isles and victory for the Solar Empire, which is already half done, because if you're playing as the Anglo Isles, your victory and defeat conditions are going to be already set up properly. It's just, if you're playing as the Solar Empire right now, you don't have win conditions or defeat conditions, I think. I know you don't have win conditions, because if the Anglo Isles fails, the Solar Empire will just keep playing. And I'm guessing that if the Anglo Isles were to capture the HQ, you wouldn't get, like, the defeat screen to show up. It would probably just keep playing also. So that's something that would be good to add in at some point. But also not a huge deal right now, because the most important thing right now is just making sure that the missions are playable and you can actually play through the whole thing without disconnecting or anything, which so far hasn't been an issue from what I've tested in this level. And what you're seeing right now is just a third demonstration of this level being played online against myself, and this time I opened... Well, I already had 2 instances of Dolphin open before, but this time I have both of them on screen windowed next to each other, so you can see them at the same time. And you can also see what I mean right here by how, like, both players see each other as player 2. Also, the reason why in the opening cutscene you didn't hear Colonel Windsor talking was because I muted the second window, which is actually player 1. I muted that one because I didn't want the audio to be playing over itself with both instances open. But the audio works fine for both of them, so. Also, my frame rate might seem a little bit lower right now. It was full FPS when I was playing in-game, but on the recording it's definitely showing lower FPS. Probably just because having 2 copies of Dolphin being recorded is a lot. And then one more thing I should talk about is you may have noticed that during the cutscene and also after the cutscene, there's certain scripted events that aren't playing out properly. Like, normally there's supposed to be some gunships here. 4 of them, actually, attacking the frigates, which you see during the cutscene, and then gunships attack once you reach the frigates, which isn't happening. And again, I'm pretty sure this has something to do with the fact that player 2's cutscene is broken. And I think the game isn't recognizing that the initial cutscene has happened already. And there was also something else regarding unit instance flags which I'm not sure why that matters, but when I was adding in player 2 in the level XML, there's a line of text for each player camera that has unit instance flags listed, and changing that actually causes a lot of weird things to happen. It can cause the game to just crash, or it can cause certain scripted events to like not work the way they normally would. So that's something else I'll need to figure out, and hopefully we can get the cutscenes to play out properly. But anyway, as you just saw, I destroyed the Anglo frigates, which made the Anglo Isles lose, but the Solar Empire just kept on playing. The only reason they stopped is because once the Anglo Isles had failed the mission, they disconnected from the game because the game ended for them. And then once they disconnected, it caused the Solar Empire to also disconnect because there's no longer another player in the room. So yeah, that was just a demonstration of functioning single player levels in multiplayer. Hopefully I'll have another video of a co-op level later, and thanks for watching.